What is fur's place in this kind of changing and warmer world?
The fashion industry is changing and shifting again back towards fur. The designers in Milan and Berlin and Paris are making that shift back now.
Whether you like it or not, fur is back. Far from Milan Fashion Week, we head to the place the American fur trade once reached its bloody climax, Alaska. Fur remains an important part of Alaskan culture, most significantly in the Fur Rondi, Anchorage's most important annual event. We went to Alaska to learn everything we could about fur.
Luckily, we had access to Randy Zarnke, the president of the Alaska Trappers Association.
Families in Alaska are exposed to harvesting your own animal, your own meat, your own food.
Speaking of family,
A lot of people don't know that we're twins.
Yeah, they do.
Tuesday, it's called Yes and. That was horrible.
Sorry, yes, and they do.
this is Tuesday, one of my best friends and not my twin. She grew up spending a lot of time in Alaska, and her dad is from Anchorage and lives there now. For a taste of the real Alaska, they took us fishing on a frozen lake.
How long have you been fishing for Tuesday?
Took me 3 minutes.
Oh, you got a fish. Oh, you got a fish. Got to get him all the way out. Away from the hole. Away from the hole. There you go. Albert, tell me that's your first fish.
That's my first fish.
That is a beautiful trout.
Whoa!
Ultimately, this is a story about people and their relationship with animals. And before we get into the bloody stuff, the hunting, fishing, and skinning, here's some dog mushing, one of the biggest attractions at any Fur Rondi.
A big part of Alaskan history is dog sledding. It's another way that animals are used up here and have been used in aspects of American life. The weird thing about it, though, is there was no snow this year. They've had to put snow from somewhere out on the street. Normally there'd be feet and feet of snow, so they can't do the normal 25-mile race. It's weird to think that I'll be seeing dog sleds in the middle of a city, on a city street. That seems not wrong, but seems pretty odd. Try and talk to somebody about dog sledding, see what they think.
Michael Tetzler from Germany.
From Germany?
Yes.
How long have you been dog sledding?
Oh, since 1987.
Some people have a bad reaction to dog sledding, but other folks say the dogs just want to run. This is what they love to do. What are your thoughts on that?
This dog's just born for that, you know what I mean? So it's a nature. So if you don't do it, it's not good for the dogs.
We're very much strangers to the world of dog mushing. So you were in the Iditarod.
In 1977.
And could you explain to someone from California what the Iditarod is?
It's a 1,000-mile race. They call it 1,000. It's about 1,300. Starts here in Anchorage, and you run across the state of Alaska, and you end in Nome. I raced for 54 years,
Wow.
and I just retired this summer.
Oh, congratulations. And so, people that are strangers to this, they're get very concerned about the dog's well-being. But how do you feel about that?
That's 3 miles is a breeze.
This gentleman here said that they're going to be asking for more at that point.
Right, exactly.
This is definitely the coolest thing from the Fur Rondi so far. This feels like really what this is all about. I wish that there was more snow. I wish they didn't have to bring snow in, but there are a lot of characters here already, and there are people that feel like very much connected to the history here. It feels alive. We really want to interview some dogs, but I feel like these dogs are not going to f with us. These dogs, I can tell want to go. So I can't wait to see it.
3, 2, 1, go!
To prepare for the fur auction, I needed to get hands-on with fur.
And so we got to start this video off by looking at fur. Where better to do it than the Alaska Fur Exchange? But it's more than just fur. Don't forget that.
While it might look like a souvenir shop on the side of the road, the Alaska Fur Exchange is exactly as described. It's a place locals can come to buy the furs they need to make their own winter clothing. We spoke to Chelsea, who told us more.
For the bodies, it's mostly like sea otter, but this one's a land otter. We are not native owned, so we cannot sell sea otter or seal. But sea otter is definitely often used for the bodies of parkas and stuff because of how warm it is. It's the first warmest fur in the world.
Otter is?
Sea otter.
Sea otter is.
The land otter is not as warm as sea otter. We cannot sell it unless it's been significantly altered by a native.
Only native-owned institutions can sell sea mammal furs.
That includes like seal. You can't sell walrus unless it's native owned, and it can still only be native to native.
I see.
You have to be native to purchase them as well. Yeah, but there's a lot of laws concerning native-made products, such as polar bear is one of the big ones, which is this claw around my neck. This one I did not make. We sell them here. This one has been significantly altered by a native, so it is legally able to be sold. This one is a polar bear with some walrus ivory up on top and baleen here in the middle and a claw at the bottom.
Being here, all I could think was how soft the furs were. Tanned, processed, cleaned. I knew it came from something living, but at the same time, I couldn't really conceptualize how it got here.
What are the things that you're selling most of? What are people coming in here to get? Is there something that's most in demand that you would say?
Yes, beaver is definitely one of our most used furs. They are most commonly used for the native clothing, such as hats, mittens. Occasionally, people will use it for the bodies of their parkas, because parkas are traditionally done with a full fur. I just don't have the money for a full fur one right now. Sea otter is, it's one of the most expensive furs. Yes, even for us natives to buy from native to native, it's still super expensive.
If your impression of fur was that it's expensive, it is. Even sold direct to the people who are making winter clothes for themselves. If you want to learn about brands in an area, a good way to find good names is thrifting. And one name kept coming up. A luxury furrier with 100 years of history, David Green.
I couldn't resist.
Remember, if you don't know furs, know your furrier. David Green, your master furrier.
Oh man, this is just so classic.
They have an impressive wall of fame.
There's a lot of Ronald Reagan up here.
Customers include Reagan, Muhammad Ali, and the Pope. Terry took us into the cold storage to see where the furs are kept and explain to us the history of the brand.
So David Green's has been Alaska's pioneer furrier for 103 years, but the family have been furriers for generations before that. And fur is a natural renewable resource.
The tags on David Green's furs are remarkably transparent, but named as sources places like Canada and Denmark.
Is there a David Green specialty, like a specialty fur or a specialty garment?
Absolutely. We do an Alaskan style parka that we've done for decades. It's definitely our signature piece. Gray fox for the body, wolf and wolverine for the hood, beaver on the interfacing, calfskin here and here, stenciled with the dog team and his musher to commemorate the Iditarod, badger on the finish, and for the tassels, wolverine and badger. People see something like this and they go, wow, it's a work of wearable art.
So I'm curious of the evolution of the supply chain for David Green specifically.
It's safer to buy from market now because then you get the quality that you want. They get the best dollar for their stuff.
And you're also saying that at market, it's safer to assume it's gotten in the correct manner.
Yes, because regulations change all the time, and it's their job to make sure that people keep up with that kind of stuff, and regulation is key.
We're going to go to the fur auction on Saturday.
So that's a little bit different. The skin auction we buy is in Montreal, and it's a international it's a large skin market. This is all things that have come out of Alaska for, not sure the sourcing or how they get them, but it's more individual trappers, harvesters, and so you're getting some local stuff.
It's a little more Wild West.
There you go, yeah.
Okay, good to know.
A big market like this raises the specter of fur farming. By some accounts, farmed fur makes up 85% of the global fur market. And though we're mostly focused on the 15% caught in the wild, we asked Randy for his thoughts on the ethical distinction between the two practices.
Do I think there's an ethical difference between the two approaches? The people that first started raising animals in captivity felt that it would be much more efficient and that therefore they would make a lot more money doing it, as opposed to going out and catching animals one by one. The failure of most of the fur farms maybe reveals that not to be the case.
Now that we'd seen finished fur garments, it was important to see where furs really come from. And who better to tell us than Nick Peters, a member of the Alaska Trappers Association and a prolific trapper himself.
Hunted all through my childhood and got into trapping 10, 12 years old.
In what ways is historical trapping in danger of change from the outside world?
There's a collective push from people that are very far removed from the natural world that don't understand where fur comes from or why people would pursue fur animals for clothing or really hunting and fishing or any of these historical activities that have taken place for millennia since humanity first took steps on the planet.
There's a whole lot less fur at the Fur Rondi than you might think. It's become sort of a carnival. But there is a fur auction. It's tomorrow. And our new friend Nick has invited us to go along and see some of the setup in anticipation of the big auction.
we followed Nick to see some setup and meet another trapper.
My name is Richard Person. I'm a lifelong Alaskan. My main calling is commercial fishing, but I do some trapping and a few other things for income streams. Yeah, we had a good season last year. Killed a bunch of otter and wolverine, marten.
What sells the best at the fur auction typically when you come out here?
Everything sells well except for marten. It's just a smaller fur, and the national auctions do better. This auction probably provides the best fur prices in perhaps the whole world.
The furs that you saw at the fur auction don't represent the activities of 1 or 2 or 5 trappers. There are probably well over 100 trappers that were represented there. These are furs that they've been gathering over the last 3 or 4 months. It's an important source of income, especially for people that live out in the remote areas. Some of it is custom that they've always trapped, but some of it is an honest way to make a living.
What you may not know is the enormous state of Alaska is largely inaccessible unless you have a plane. Nick is not just a trapper, he's a pilot as well, and showed us how actual trappers traverse this incredible environment. Flying over this dramatic and impressive environment, I'm reminded that to live here, you need a lot of skills. Self-sufficiency is key, and it's really what trapping is all about.
Folks are looking around and going, oh, I can have chickens and produce my own eggs or milk, and fur is a big part of that, which when you're in the North Country, it could get substantially cold. And fur is a great insulator, and there's really nothing that beats it. And for sustainability, guys have been trapping the same ground for 30, 40, 50 years, and people were trapping it before them and hunting it and fishing it and being a part of the natural world and being able to use that resource to your advantage is a big part of Alaska.
Thank you for doing this. This is unbelievable.
That's why I was nominated as the PR guy. You talk to these guys? Yeah, sure.
After days of shooting and interviews, the fur auction is here, and suddenly I'm getting second thoughts.
I didn't sleep well at all last night. Whenever I close my eyes, I just see fur. I just see different kinds of fur, and I'm thinking about the ethics of fur, and I'm thinking about animals suffering, or people thinking that I want animals to suffer. I'm thinking about all of it. It feels like there's a greater weight on my shoulders than there was when we arrived to try and understand this as well as I can and to ask the right questions. I don't know, we've seen so much like beauty and majesty, and we've met so many amazing people. I think I came here with no agenda. I wanted just to hear people out and hear what they had to say. But the more I learn, the more confused I am.
Are you feeling worried that people are going to think that you support mistreatment of animals?
I am a little bit worried people will think I support the mistreatment of animals. I think that for all the intelligent, thoughtful speak we've heard, there is some level of glee at the bloodlust. I think we're trying really hard to draw lines between fashion fur, practical fur, fur farming, trapping. I think we're all trying to create boundaries between things so it makes sense. Maybe it's just my squeamishness with maybe it's like me and the trout, maybe it's my squeamishness because this is something I'm separate from. I don't want to be like the people that come here and don't have any say, don't have any experience, and just come down on people, because I think that just makes it all worse. And I think if there is wiggle room in the kind of black and white vision of all the people about this issue, it has to be done very thoughtfully and with compassion for heritage, tradition, and suspicion of outside meddling. To be reactionary and freak out is not going to help anyone. And to come down on these people really hard and alienate them is also not going to help anyone. And I think I'm curious to ask questions about what is the way forward. Maybe we don't all agree about why the world is changing, but if the world is changing, and how do we navigate that and protect our natural resources and honor the sacrifice that animals make for us. While the rest of Anchorage goes to the parade, and then the other part of Anchorage goes to the dog sledding event, we are going to the fur auction. I don't know how this got triple booked, but it did. I don't know who's going to be here because it feels like everyone's going to be at those two other things. Look at all this traffic. This is not a big town by any means, but if you shut down several of the roads for a parade, you're going to cause some traffic jams. Here we are at the fur auction. This is what we traveled all these hours and all these miles, and this is why we talked to all those people. We came here to see this last small vestige of what a fur rendezvous used to be. But this is a very small fraction of what this would have been 90 years ago when the Fur Rendezvous first began. Seeing all of Anchorage out, it really calls into perspective how much is the Fur Rendezvous even about fur anymore.
This was everything we'd worked for, the fur auction, and I was overwhelmed. Touching and smelling the many pelts brought from all over the state was truly a sight to behold. And to be here was to be transported out of 2025 into a different era, a different culture, and the effect was staggering. And that's when a crowd started to gather. The fur auction had begun.
I am super excited. This year is the 90th Fur Rondi. This is the 28th year that the Alaska Trapper Association South Central Chapter does the fur auction. Steve's going to start us off in his beautiful wolf parka.
Okay, so let's grab the first item here. Got the Texas polar bear right here, the ermine, and we got a couple mink there. So you're buying all three of them for one money, all three for one money. How about a $100 bid? Do I hear a $100 bid? You want a $100 bid? How about 75? Do I hear 75? What do you want the money?
I'd never been to an auction, much less a fur auction, and I wasn't quite sure what I'd do with a fur. But when an otter came up, an untanned otter, I felt I had to bid for it. One of the most significant furs in our country's history, in the state's history, so I had to have my own.
Do I hear 125 anywhere? 125? How about $100 on an otter? Way, way low here. 100, now 110. $100 bid here, do I hear 110? All in and all done. $100 bid, do I hear 110? Way, way under the money here. 100, do I hear 110? 110, now 115. 150? 115, now 120, and now 125. I have 120 over here. Do I hear 125? All in and all done. Sold $120 your way, sir. You want both of those? He takes them one time, my backup bidder can have the other one.
And suddenly I was complicit. I was a part of the fur trade. Nick walked me through the two pelts and helped me choose the better of the two. And I left that day the owner of my very own stinky otter.
I wonder how much our collective discomfort with fur just comes down to our privilege. The privilege that most of us can offload the work of processing any and all animal products we consume to some faceless, nameless person in another place.
And I am incredibly grateful for the life of this fish.
Alaska is significant in our country. It's one of the last places where the sort of self-sufficiency and frontier spirit still exists. Kids grow up learning how to fish, to hunt, and then of course to trap. I don't think many of us consider the fact that fur was the first human textile, basically. The first material that clothed us and kept us safe and warm. Our world is different, and our world is even different than it was 10 years ago. There was no snow in Anchorage. It was not as cold as it usually is. At the beginning of our video, I asked what is fur's place in this changing and warmer world? And I don't know. I know that a handful of trappers make a significantly smaller impact on the environment than any factory farm. I don't have an answer on whether or not fur is okay, but I know that the zero-sum arguments that the outdoors sort of confederation has and the animal rights activists have are not going to get us anywhere. I think at the end of the day, the more names and faces you can put to people involved in between animal and animal product, the higher the likelihood that you can feel okay about wearing that thing or consuming that thing, because you know the heart and the character of the people that did the work. Because I eat steak, I wear leather,
I'm not one to tell you what you can and can't do, but I think you should think about your clothes the way you think about your food. Just give it a little more thought.